Hey guys, it's Tara here, and I am nervous about this one. Oh my goodness, I actually think I'm going to put you down because I think my hands are going to be shaking too much. All right, so welcome to my Wonder Wednesday video. I come to you live every Wednesday at 1:15 Eastern. Thanks for watching, Joni. And today's video is going to be a bit different. So, hi Joanna, thanks for joining. So today's video is different. I am turning the lens on myself, literally and figuratively, because obviously every Wednesday the lens is on myself, right? But normally I'm sharing something that I feel is helpful for you guys, a tip, whatever. And this time I'm going to be talking about my own health and my journey and a little bit of, about my story. So I'm super duper nervous, and I appreciate all the love. Thank you guys. Joni says hi from the New York State Thruway. Thank you so much. I know you're just listening and you're not watching, so that's good. Stay safe. All right, so I've got my big kiddo in school, and my little kiddo is sleeping, so I think it's just going to be us. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. I'm just going to speak from the heart. So here we go. You might have seen me type in the little intro there that I have PCOS and autoimmune issues. This is the first time I'm ever speaking this to anybody except for my tiny, tiny little circle. Joanna, thank you. You're so sweet. I know, I'm so nervous. I shouldn't be nervous. It's ridiculous. But you know what? I realized even though I've shared about my infertility journey a little bit and some of the sickness I had during pregnancy, it was always after the fact that I was sharing it, number one. Number two, I never did a video about it, so it was always just like a blog post or a social media post or whatever. I never shared anything, I guess, while I was in the midst of it. So this is totally different for me, and I've been very nervous. I actually wore kind of like a darker shirt today because I was afraid I was going to be sweating while I was taping this, and I didn't want you guys to see the sweat stains, so now you know. All right, so let's just get into it. So normally, if you're watching me for the first time, you don't know who I am. I'm a registered nurse, I'm a health coach, and normally I'm helping other people with their conditions, right? So this is totally different with me being on the other side of things. And the reason I'm sharing this today is because I've gotten many questions from people about my health story, or how can I stay so motivated, and even as far as people saying, how do you know what it's like? You're not overweight, you don't know my issues, and that type of thing. So I thought, you know what, it's time for me to share a little bit more about me. And plus, I felt like this might really be helpful to other people, specifically certain strategies that I'm going to share, but also just the fact that why shouldn't we be able to talk about these things, right? I would like to get to a point where these conversations can be just out there in the open and people aren't nervous, when they're talking about it. Hi, Mackenzie, thanks for joining. So, all right, so you know what, I'm going to start about how many years ago? 25 years ago? I'm dating myself here. When I was 8, I became a vegetarian. And it was my choice. My family, nobody in my family were vegetarians. But I feel like that's an important point to mention because although my family was very good about trying to keep me healthy, making sure I had enough protein and all of that, I had been consuming so much dairy from that point forward because it was a quick and easy source of protein, and gluten because I was eating like sleeves of Ritz crackers at a time, because back in the day it was considered healthy to be, crackers and cheese was like a healthy snack, right? That was what it was. Maybe not the cheese so much, but certainly the low-fat crackers. We were on this low-fat craze, and processed food wasn't considered as bad as long as it was low-fat. Nobody was talking about, processed carbs and how awful they were for you. Nobody was talking about what kind of fat we needed versus which ones we should avoid. Or at least it wasn't, as popular then to be talked about. So anyway, so from 8 years old on, I was a vegetarian. I was not a vegan. I was still consuming eggs. I was still consuming tons of dairy. And it's inflammatory, right? So I think that part kind of plays into this. I was also having so many carbs because when you cut out an entire category of food like meat, you need to get your calories from somewhere. So I was probably consuming way more processed carbs than most people. Hi, Angela. Thanks for joining. So, okay, I was eating tons of carbs. I was eating tons of dairy. Fine. I become a teenager. I get my period. If there's any guys watching, don't worry. I'm not going to go too in depth from this point, but, and who cares? If there are any guys watching, if you can't hear somebody talk about their period, then that's your problem, not mine. So I get my period, never regular, by the way. And right in the beginning, when you're a young girl, you're told that it's normal not to have a regular period, except mine never became regular. And then mine became super painful. And I was taken to the doctor. And the doctor, she was my pediatrician at the time. Well, she's still a pediatrician, I'm sure. But she put me on birth control pills. That was her fix for it. I didn't know any better. I wasn't thinking that this was just, a Band-Aid to cover up symptoms. She never tried to find a diagnosis for me. She never did any sort of testing. She just put me on birth control because that would give me a, regular period, although it was, medically induced period, basically. It would reduce the pain, okay, but it would just cover things up for years, because then I was just on birth control for years and years and years, and all of my symptoms were masked, and I didn't know what was going on. Hi, Melissa. Thanks for joining. You guys are awesome. I appreciate everybody who's watching and supporting me because I'm so nervous. All right, so now I'm on birth control for so long, and I just know that something is not right. There's these little telltale signs. I am interested in health, so I'm kind of learning little tidbits along the way. I become a personal trainer, so I know a little bit now about the body from that perspective. Then I go to nursing school, so I learn kind of the medical, points about it. So all along, I'm gathering this information, and I'm thinking, all right, this could be what I have, possibly. I'm not really sure. Talking specifically right now about the PCOS, which, by the way, I'm sorry I didn't say. PCOS, if you don't know, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's very long, so that's why people call it PCOS. And although it talks about your ovaries in that name, it actually affects your entire body. So I'll get into that a little bit more. But polycystic ovarian syndrome is a condition that affects almost every system inside your body. So Angela, thank you. I appreciate that, Angela. So now I'm starting to get clues. I'm in nursing school. I'm like, I think this could be my issue, maybe this PCOS thing. I'm not really sure. I finally come off the birth control. By the way, I had terrible reactions to the birth control. Not only things that were going on under the radar that I didn't know about, but things that I definitely knew about. I would be awfully ill, so nauseous. They put me on the lowest dose ever, and I would still get sick on that. I tried, non-pill options. I would still get sick. Basically, anything with any type of hormone makes me sick. Why I would do that, I don't know. Like these days, I look back and I'm thinking, why did I listen? I don't know. So I come off of the birth control, and sure enough, my symptoms return. My cycle's completely out of whack. I'm getting a period every couple of months, like whenever it wants to show up, no rhyme or reason. And, I'm just noticing things that aren't right. So, hi, Liana. Thanks for joining. I hope you found a good book. So I'm off the birth control. Okay, things are showing up. I have these symptoms, and now I actually take it to my doctor. Now I go to my, at this point, my GYN, and I say, look, I'm thinking that I might have PCOS. I actually went with the name of what I thought I had, and I was dismissed. I was basically told, well, you're not trying to conceive yet, so PCOS is only something to worry about when you're trying to conceive. We'll revisit it at that point. That didn't sit right with me, but again, I wasn't aggressive enough yet. I didn't know enough yet, and I was kind of a little bit more meek and mild. So I was like, all right, he must know best, and whatever, I'll just wait. So all along, I'm kind of like collecting more evidence, thinking that there was an issue. I remember at one point I had to get some blood work done by a different doctor for, now I'm a nurse, I'm a registered nurse at this point, and I went back to school to get my bachelor's. And every year we had to do a physical, and we had to get blood work drawn for titers and things like that. And I asked my doctor, I'm like, if you're going to draw the blood anyway, can you just do like a hormone panel? Because I just have a feeling that something's really like out of control here, out of whack. So she did it, and something did come back out of whack. I had elevated prolactin levels, which could be related, not necessarily, but that wasn't something that said, yes, you definitely have PCOS. That was kind of something else. But it was enough of a red flag that had to be addressed right away. So kind of everything else went on the back burner, and we were addressing that. Hey, Swan. Hey, Shannon. Thanks for joining. So, okay, now, some of the blood work was like a little bit off, but not too much. And by the way, I want to point this out too. I didn't think about this at the time. I didn't know it. But what are the parameters that they set at the labs? Typically, people who go to the lab are unwell in some way, right? Most people are getting blood work for a certain reason. Most people are not just getting blood work just because. And what they do is they'll take often the bottom 2.5% and the top 2.5%, and they'll set those as being too high or too low for your parameters. And then all of that in the middle is considered, normal. But who's to say that that's normal? And who's to say that that's normal for your body? So basically, I was showing signs that there was something going on. I had symptoms, but even if things were coming back, certain things were coming back in the normal range. For example, my testosterone levels, which could be really elevated with PCOS, they were coming back normal. So I think that had to do with a lot of the reason why I was dismissed with my concerns. All right, so now we're pushing it off like a couple years. I'm knowing in the back of my head, like I just feel that when it comes time to want to conceive, I'm going to have trouble, but whatever, I'm waiting. Hi, Caitlin, thanks for joining. So now I get married, we're ready to have kids, and it's an issue. It's a problem. We can't conceive. No surprise there because I'm hardly getting my period. I'm pretty sure. Oh, by the way, my specialty, and I go back now for my master's to become a women's health nurse practitioner. So now I'm in school literally studying about women's cycles, and I know that this is what's going on with my body. I just know it. And I know now, I'm like sitting there studying, reading about how if a woman's cycle is longer than this many days, chances are she's probably not ovulating. That was me. Okay, so I was probably not ovulating at all, or maybe once a year, twice a year. If that's the case, how can somebody get pregnant, right? I can't even believe I'm sharing this with you guys right now. Oh boy. So, okay, so that was the case with me. So now I go back to my doctor and tell him about the issues. And at this point, since now we are trying to conceive and we've been trying to conceive, now I'm taken seriously and I'm sent to a reproductive endocrinologist, a fertility doc, basically. So thank you for the hearts, guys. I love you guys. Thank you. I feel like you're right here with me, and it's really helping. Liana, thank you so much. So I get sent to a fertility doctor, and I explained to her also that I think that I have PCOS. I think this is what it is. Battery of tests. I'm going to totally abbreviate all of this because this was a crazy long story, but I'm just going to abbreviate all of this. All the tests. Nothing was conclusive enough. I was still not given this diagnosis of PCOS. Okay, fine. I think it was written down unexplained infertility. So now we're trying some less invasive things to get pregnant, going for all of these tests, trying some more invasive things. And, oh, thanks, Swan. Thank you for watching. Thanks for watching the replay, too. I appreciate you being here. So thanks, Kristen, for coming. So now I go, so now we're increasingly getting more and more invasive with what we're trying. Now it's, if you've been through an infertility journey yourself, I'm sorry, it's so incredibly difficult and painful and lonely. Okay, didn't think I was going to get emotional. All right, See, I put on eyeliner for you guys today, and I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have known that maybe I was going to get a little bit sad about this. But, all right, so infertility is an extremely heart-wrenching journey. And for whatever reason, when I was in it, I didn't want to share about it. I wasn't ready. I desperately wanted to connect with and talk to other people who had been through it and who had success stories, because if you Google anything, you just see all the difficult, the failures and all of that, and I did not want to focus on that. So anytime I'd hear about somebody, like sometimes my husband would say, oh, so-and-so at work said that they have, twins and they did IVF 7 years ago and it worked and all this stuff. And I was like, I had this desperate need to want to connect to that person because I just wanted to hear all the good stories, because you feel like it's never going to happen for you. But once we were on that path, it became less about like what's wrong with me and what's going on, and it was just tunnel vision, like I want to be a mom so bad, and now I'm just going to continue along whatever path this doctor tells me that I have to do because I want to be a mom. So, all right, we did IVF, and okay, so we did IVF, and it didn't work. And that was probably the lowest of low points, because when you feel like you've done the biggest thing that you can do, like the most invasive, the last resort type of thing, and it doesn't work, you just feel so hopeless, like you feel like it's never going to work. So that was super hard, and we just decided to like collect ourselves. It was right before the holidays, many years ago, and we were like, okay, let's just settle in, try to enjoy the holidays. We'll regroup. We'll come back the next year, in January, and we'll try from there. So we did. I revisited the possibility that I have PCOS again, or that there was something going on, because I didn't want to just take unexplained infertility as a diagnosis. I'm like, our bodies should do what it's supposed to do. Like, why is my body not doing what it's supposed to do? I lead this healthy life, So anyway, we went back and we tried IVF again, and we had my daughter. So that was such a relief. Man, it was the most amazing moment to find that out. I was very... Oh, Joanna, thank you so much. I can't believe I'm crying. I feel like such a wuss, but I guess it is really, it's really emotional. So this is me. So, okay, obviously all the amazing feelings in the world, all of that. I'm going to also now quickly go through, I was very sick during the pregnancy. That's probably unrelated to this, but again, who knows what's related and what's not. But I was very sick during the pregnancy, but it almost made me feel like going through that crazy infertility struggle helped me deal with everything I had to do during the pregnancy, because, I was able to still keep my eye on the prize and just be so thankful that I was indeed going to be a mom, and my husband was going to be a dad, and we were going to, have this family that we always wanted. So we give birth to my daughter. Everything's amazing. She's perfect. Maybe you've seen her on the news feed. Maybe you know her in real life. And, it's all amazing. I believe at that point I started sharing that I had done IVF like here and there, but it still wasn't like out, because I knew that we wanted more. And I was afraid, I don't know what, like I was going to jinx it or something. So the first, year is just amazing. We're focusing on her, but I knew in the back of my mind that we were going to go through this again because we wanted a sibling for her. If at all possible, if we could be lucky enough, we wanted a sibling for her. So she, I think, was around maybe 15 months, and we started the next process. At this point, we did start some less invasive interventions, but we moved rather quickly back to IVF because I think the doctor's point of view and our point of view, we were like, well, those things didn't work in the past. They're probably not going to work again. So, it's probably going to be IVF. So we were a little less reluctant, I guess, to go that route. And what's funny is that I'm somebody who doesn't even like to take, like an Advil in regular life. And here I am pumping hormones and chemicals and all of this stuff into my body for the sake of being a mom. I wouldn't change any of it for the world, by the way. But it was just so ironic that here I am, Miss, like, you know, crunchy hippie, whatever. And I'm pumping all these chemicals, giving myself shots. My husband's having to be home by a specific time every single night because he has to give me a shot like within 5 minutes of when it's supposed to be due. So that was that. So now we moved to the IVF to try to get a sibling for Maggie, and it didn't work. So here we are on the same boat. And it was devastating again. It's not really any easier the second time around, although I guess it's a little bit less all-consuming because you do have another child that is taking up your time and making you smile and all of those things. So it was probably a little bit better for that reason. Okay, so we go through it again, and I'm pregnant, and it's my son. It's Jagger. So again, all the amazing things, and we're so happy. I get super sick again this time. So it's hyperemesis gravidarum is what I have had both pregnancies, and it's basically incredible nausea and vomiting, like way worse than, I guess, morning sickness. And it's so much so that I couldn't really keep any food or drinks down. When I came home from delivering Jagger, it lasted the whole pregnancy. When I came home from delivering Jagger, and so, like, you know, I delivered him, placenta's out, all that stuff, and I'm home. I weighed 85 pounds. So I'm 5'2". I'm normally nowhere near 85 pounds, and I was just, like, so sickly. Actually, recently we were looking at pictures, and my daughter's like, Mom, that doesn't even look like you. And it's true, my face, I just looked like a skeleton. So, all right. But the good news is, as soon as the baby comes out, both times, I have no nausea. I'm totally fine, and I put the weight back on in a matter of, I don't know, a month or two probably, because I'm starving and I can finally eat and hold food down, and then I'm able to put the weight back on. So now it wasn't until I've had both of my children with the blessing and help of IVF that I finally got my PCOS diagnosis. I kid you not, I had to go... Oh, you know what it was? It was, I think, in the beginning of my pregnancy with Jagger that I was still being followed by the fertility doc. And she sort of like, sorry, everything's a little fuzzy. I'm totally remembering it now. My doctor wasn't in one day, and I saw one of her partners. And her partners had come in and looked at my chart and said, oh, so you have PCOS. And I said, what? And she goes, oh, yeah, your diagnosis, you have PCOS. So of all of this talking to the doctors and thinking that I have PCOS and wondering if I'm going crazy and just wanting to know for sure before I completely changed my lifestyle and my diet and everything, at some point she had decided that I did indeed have PCOS but didn't tell me that, and she just wrote it down on my chart. I can't believe I almost forgot that part. Hi Leticia, hi Fran, hi Kristen, thanks for joining. So that's how I found out that I had this official diagnosis of PCOS, which was crazy. I was already pregnant. I had already done the IVF. Again, I wouldn't change it for the world because who knows, maybe I would have different kids if I didn't do the IVF, whatever, I don't know, but I wouldn't change it for the world. But I do want to share with you because I just think it's important to know that we need to take our health journey in our own hands, you know, a lot of times. So, yeah, I had a lot of sonograms during this whole process of the IVF, and I had polycystic ovaries, meaning I had many cysts on my ovaries, which is one of the symptoms of PCOS, but it's not the only one. And because you can actually have polycystic ovaries without having the syndrome, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have it. If you can have one ultrasound, have multiple cysts on your ovaries and still not have the syndrome. So therefore, she didn't put that together with it. Sometimes my blood work was showing up normal. My blood sugar, because polycystic ovarian syndrome greatly affects your blood sugar. And so my blood sugar for a while was showing up normal. Because here's the thing, I don't want to get too sciencey on this, but if you eat something and normally your blood sugar is here, right? We secrete insulin to help us take the blood sugar out of our blood and put it into our cells to use. So you eat something, it raises your blood sugar to here, you secrete insulin, You need about this much insulin, let's just say, to take this blood sugar and lower it. Cool. So next time you eat this, same amount of insulin, lowers it. Great. Again, this keeps happening, right? But eventually, if your blood sugar is too high, your insulin will be having to be secreted higher to combat the blood sugar. So your blood sugar is here, insulin goes higher, brings it down, right? So when you're testing your blood sugar is actually going to come back normal because your insulin is doing its job, but no one's testing the insulin. I mean, some people do now, and more holistic natural doctors will do it, but on a Western medicine typical blood panel, you're not getting that. So they're testing the blood sugar and they're saying, your blood sugar's fine, but no one's realizing that I'm becoming insulin resistant. So, hey Sandra, thanks for watching. So what was happening, I'm assuming now looking back, is that my blood sugar was being raised, but my insulin was still doing its job and bringing it down. So now I'm higher, it's coming down. So you see the point. Eventually, your pancreas, which secretes the insulin, is going to get tired, and so it can't keep up this little game. And then your blood sugar starts to raise because your insulin just is no match anymore for it. It's getting too tired. So, now, shortly after I find out, like accidentally, that I have PCOS in the beginning of my pregnancy with Jagger, I then go to my GYN and find out that I am technically in prediabetes range for my blood sugar. That was shocking to me because I was eating healthier and healthier. I work out. I stay pretty active, and health is like my life. If you know me, I'm really interested. I'm a nurse and I'm a health coach and I'm a personal trainer. I'm interested in this. But first of all, going back to my earlier days when I thought I was being healthy and I was eating like all these junky processed carbs, still probably in my 20s, I'm a vegetarian. I go out to a bar with friends and I can't get what's on the menu, so I'm ordering like fried mozzarella sticks. So although I knew at the time that wasn't really healthy, but that was kind of like, in my diet there. So it wasn't always like green salads and kale smoothies and things like that, So now I know I have PCOS, which I've known all along. I probably really should have taken the reins, but now I know for sure. And I'm pre-diabetic. And now I'm pregnant after just having gone through all of this IVF. And what now? Anyway, I slowly changed my diet even more. So things like if I would eat oatmeal in the morning with blueberries, let's just say, or if I'd have a smoothie and put like tons of fruit in it, or anything like that, even though that's healthy and some other people's bodies can handle a little bit more, I knew that wasn't the best for me. Blood sugar typically is harder to control in the morning when you first wake up. So the hormone that like wakes you up and gets you out of bed is cortisol. It's a stress hormone, but we need some of it just to get us, awake in the morning and going. But it also raises your blood sugar. So it spikes in the morning, so it'll also spike your blood sugar in the morning, even though you've been fasting all night. I had to switch over my breakfast, for example, and I loved my oatmeal, but I remember telling myself, it's okay, you could still have it later in the day, you could have it for a snack or part of another meal, but it's not the best first thing in the morning. I need more healthy fats and protein in the morning. So right now I do a lot of like eggs with vegetables, or if I make myself a smoothie, I will do less fruit. I'll try to do like half a banana and a little bit of berries, which is like a lower glycemic fruit, with my protein, with my healthy fats. I'm so sorry if this video is all over the place, by the way, guys. I didn't really like script it out. I have like a few notes here, but I'm not even really following them. But all of this to say that a lot of times we can't judge a book by its cover. My doctor specifically told me before she had sneakily written down that I had PCOS, she told me I can't have PCOS because I don't fit the profile of somebody with PCOS. Hi, Jody. Thanks for joining. So typically people with this condition are overweight. Typically they have a lot of problems with their skin, which I did have, but I never had like severe acne, so it was never, I guess, so obvious. Typically people tend to have hair growth, like male pattern hair growth where they can actually lose the hair on their head and start being hairy in other places on their body, and that's due to the elevated testosterone. I didn't have that because my testosterone was on the lower side. That wasn't really one of my main issues. On the other hand, I store fat incredibly easily. I retain water incredibly easily. If I am dehydrated, I will retain water. If I eat too much salt, too much sugar, if I have some food that my body doesn't agree with, one of the first things I can tell is I just kind of blow up. I'm almost always retaining water, to the point where I'm still trying to figure out what all of my food sensitivities are, because I don't feel like I've gotten them all yet. And there's kind of, yes, you can test for it, but there's certain problems with almost all of the tests that are out there that it's almost better to do your own experiment to figure out how your body reacts to certain things. So at this point, I've had to take out dairy and I've had to take out gluten. I have big reactions to both. So that's definitely helped, but there's definitely something else going on still, because I'm more often than not retaining lots of water. I know a part of that is because I'm not drinking enough water myself, but that's why if you guys have been inside my Facebook group, you know a few months ago I did a water challenge and I asked you to be on top of me for it because I'm really not so great about that. So now what? So now what? I have PCOS, I have prediabetes, I have at least a gluten intolerance, if not possibly full-blown celiac disease. I'm not sure yet, and I'm not willing to do the definitive test, which will require me to go back on gluten for 6 weeks straight in order to have enough intestinal damage for them to be able to do a colonoscopy and tell me, oh yes, I see all of the damage, so yes, you have celiac disease. To me, why do that? Because I already know I have a problem. I get rashes after I have gluten. I blow up. I retain water and all that. So I'm a little curious if it's a gluten sensitivity or celiac disease, but at this point I'm kind of like, I'm not willing to risk my health that much to have gluten for 6 weeks. So yeah, I have these little signs of autoimmune issues going on. PCOS in and of itself in mainstream Western medicine is not considered an autoimmune disease, but it has many, many, many factors of being autoimmune in nature. I tend to think it actually is. My body is not doing what it's supposed to do. My body's kind of fighting against itself. So I definitely treat it like it's an autoimmune disease and that I need to kind of find out what's causing it. I can't go back in time and change how I ate when I was a kid. I can't change whatever my gene expression is or my genes are, but I can change the way that they're expressed by the way that I eat, the way that I live my lifestyle, and that type of thing. So I actually started doing a couple of things that made a huge difference. And first of all, I bought a glucometer, which is the machine that you test your blood sugar on your finger. And why not? So I have prediabetes. No doctor, by the way, that I know of, will ever tell you to test your blood sugar unless you're diagnosed with full-fledged diabetes. But why? We know that if you have prediabetes, if you don't change anything, within 3 to 5 years, you have a very high chance of having diabetes. Same goes with gestational diabetes. If you have gestational diabetes, which is when you're pregnant, you have a very high chance of going on to have full-blown, I don't know why I can't say that word today, type 2 diabetes. But no one tells you to start monitoring your blood sugar and start basically collecting data about your body and what its tolerance level is to certain things. And I think that's pretty ridiculous. So I went out, I bought myself a glucometer. No, it wasn't covered by insurance, but for me, it was money well spent to prevent something huge from happening in the future. And so in the beginning, I would test my blood sugar a lot, like fasting, before meals, after meals. I wanted to collect all the data. I wanted to know, how does this oatmeal affect me? How about if I have this really high protein meal with healthy fats and vegetables? How does that affect me? What about when I eat late at night? What is my numbers like in the morning? I would just collect all of this information. I had a notebook and I wrote it all down. And the good news is once you start to see patterns, you can kind of put that away for a while. I don't test my blood sugar even every day anymore, but I will do spot checks because I do want to keep an eye on things. I I expect as I age that my body will, I'll need to go do more changes to my diet and my lifestyle and all of that. But for now, I felt like I was at a good place to see where I was, to see where my blood sugar was at and to try to keep things at bay. As for my PCOS, I see signs that it's so much better, and I won't know for sure because I'm still breastfeeding my son, and so I haven't gotten my cycle back yet, even though he's almost 26 months old. So, who knows? I might not. A lot of people won't get their period back until after they're done breastfeeding. So we'll see when I'm done breastfeeding, and we'll see where that's at. But I have a feeling that I'm going to be able to normalize myself based on the fact that I've been able to bring down my blood sugar a lot. So I actually kind of put together the way that I eat, and I was helping a lot of my clients, with this specific method of eating. And some of my clients had come to me with similar issues with PCOS or with wanting to balance out certain other hormones, their thyroid, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, and wanting to get pregnant. And it was so, I've had clients that, and if you're watching this, you know who you are. There's been several clients who have gotten pregnant while following this protocol. Now, I'm not saying that I can get anybody pregnant. I almost want to go back and say, I'm not saying that. But they came to me wanting to get healthier, lose weight, balance their hormones, and then got pregnant. And for me, it was incredibly awesome to be able to help people, first of all, but it was also so validating to, I almost felt like, oh, look, see, I was on the right path, and maybe, just maybe, I could have made those changes for myself and, not had to go through the whole infertility journey that we did, because obviously I'll never know. I can never go back, and I wouldn't even want to change it because I've got these two awesome kids and I'm super lucky, and I feel so grateful for that. But I do sometimes wonder, I probably didn't do enough. That diagnosis came so late. It came after we had done all of that. What if I got the diagnosis before? What if I had just trusted my gut? What if I had been more aggressive, and more timely with the doctors? Maybe I would have been able to get pregnant naturally. I don't know. I'll never know that. But being able to help others, it kind of is scratching that itch for me, because it just makes me feel validated that I could have been on the right path. So that probably sounds really silly, but it's helping me. So this includes starting off the day with like a lower glycemic breakfast. It includes balancing out carbs with proteins and healthy fats. I try most days, not all the time. I'm not like really dogmatic about all of it because I feel like there should be lots of room for moderation and fun in your life. Hi Renita, hi Danielle, thanks for watching. But I pay attention to the amount of time that I fast overnight. So I try to aim for about 12 hours of not eating overnight when possible. So that might mean I'm done with dinner by 6:30 and I'm not eating breakfast before 6:30 the next morning. It's not really that hard. I think the hardest part is when you have like a social event or something and you're eating late at night. And so either I'll just decide to not stick to it that day, or I might decide to push breakfast off a little bit later the next morning. I kind of play it by ear. But I find that window of time, that 12 hours, works really well for my body. It's not going to work for everybody's, but it's not, because if you go too long, as a woman, if you go too long with fasting, you can actually cause yourself this hypothyroidism reaction. You're going to lower your metabolism and kind of cause a cascade of problems that way. So men typically will be able to handle this sort of intermittent fasting a little bit easier, like they can go longer periods of time typically. But for me, 12 hours is perfect. It gives me enough time to be able to go to sleep, let my body do its healing work, cleaning up and all of that. And not be so hungry. So, I go to bed, I'm not really all that hungry then. And then when I wake up in the morning, I can eat breakfast. So, that's something that I've implemented, and it's actually inside. I'm starting my next reset on Monday, and, registration closed last night for it, but that's one of the things that I've implemented inside the reset, is that I recommend people trying to go this 12-hour period of time to let your body heal, because it's amazing what kind of changes you'll find to like your skin and your moods and all of that. So because, by the way, with PCOS comes a lot of anxiety a lot of times. So I'm very type A, which is a nice way of putting it, and I need to learn to let go a little bit more. And I think that as I really balance out my hormones even more, I'm going to find that I have that, I don't know, mental clarity, I guess. So, hey, Alyssa, thanks for joining. So that's it. Like the way that these kind of tips, I would say, they help to, to balance everything out. They help for people who are trying to lose weight. They help for people who are having other autoimmune issues, PCOS, blood sugar issues, all of it. It's so interesting that we think about like, oh, I have this and you have that, and we think of all of these chronic diseases being completely separate. And the truth is, these chronic diseases typically are just coming down to inflammation, and a lot of that inflammation can be reduced by doing pretty similar things, like moving your body more, balancing out your meals, eating what's appropriate for your body and your goals, really nourishing your body, focusing on all the good things to add, more so than, what should I take out, or that restrictive mentality. Getting fresh air and getting plenty of sleep and drinking plenty of water. I'm telling that one to myself. So a lot of these things are helpful for all of us, right? So when I put together this program and I realized that it helped me, and then I realized it was helping my clients, that's why I was like, I got to offer this to other people. So I put this together in a reset. I ran the first reset in January. People had amazing results. I was even shocked. I knew it was going to help people, but I was even shocked at some of the results that people had. And then I'm running the next one starting on Monday. I realize that I'm sharing all this with you, and I feel bad because registration closed for that one last night. So sorry. But I just wanted to share like how I got to these things. So on the surface, it seems like I'm just like creating these programs and things like that for you or for this person. But really, most of what I do, I've tried first because I've needed to, and it's for my own health. True, you look at me and you're like, you don't think, oh, she's so overweight or anything. But I'll tell you what, my body wants to hold on to fat like nobody's business. My body is definitely the type that would gain weight out of control if I didn't do things the way that I do things. And I'm trying not to be so dogmatic. I don't count calories or anything like that. But I'm trying to roll with the way that my body has changed. So right now my body has kind of gone back to right around where it was at pre-pregnancy with both kids in terms of weight, but I'm much softer than I used to be, and I notice it. But I'm breastfeeding, right? So I'm just trying to let it go, and I'm trying to take my own medicine, so to speak. I tell people all the time these same things. If you're breastfeeding, some people lose a lot of weight on it. Other people will hold on to those last, 5-10 pounds, or maybe their weight is the same, but they're not getting their muscles back, and they're just holding on to so much fat because their body wants it as a reserve for breastfeeding. And that's certainly what my body does. My body likes to hold on to fat as reserve for breastfeeding, and I'm okay with that. I feel like most people in their teens and 20s, it's all about the way you look, and you think you're invincible, and you don't think about your health, and then until you get slapped with some kind of a chronic disease or autoimmune disease or something like that, and you start to realize that the perspective is a little bit different. It's shifted, and it's more about your health. And sure, everyone wants to feel good and look good and all of that. It's not that all goes away, but it just becomes, which priority is on top now. So my priority is absolutely for healing my body. I'm sharing this along with you guys because now maybe some of my posts going forward, I'll be able to share more about what I'm doing for myself. I hope if any of you are going through anything similar, maybe you can tell me in the comments or shoot me a message. I'm happy to chat with you about any of it. We can be cheerleaders for each other. And if you are interested in, no added sugar or no refined sugar anyway type recipes, gluten-free, dairy-free. That's why I share what I share. It's not because I think all of you should be gluten-free, dairy-free and all of that. It's because this is what I make for myself because I need to, because I have issues with my blood sugar, and these types of things will never be cured. So PCOS is not something that can ever be cured. Prediabetes is never something that can be cured, but it can be managed. So I find a lot of empowerment in that. These things can be managed to the point where they never show up again, in any kind of a clinical way. Alyssa's saying, I never knew that. I think that's what it is. I've lost over 20 pounds a month. Oh, I can't see. Oh, I've lost over 20 pounds and multiple inches pant size, but I look the same. Oh, that's so interesting, Alyssa. Thank you, Tara. Your group and posts have... Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you so much for sharing that, first of all. Me being so nervous, I know that it's hard to share that type of a thing. But yeah, the weight thing is really, really interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen, I think it's gone viral on Facebook, I believe, but they'll show like all of these different women, different heights, different body shapes, and they'll say all of these women are, 150 pounds or something. And you can see all of the different shapes, and it's so crazy. They're, everybody's 150 pounds. This person's really tall and skinny, and this person's really short and muscular, and the person in the middle is kind of just like beautifully curvy, and all different variations in between. And I just find that so amazing and eye-opening, that your body, like the weight on the scale is just telling such a tiny, tiny piece of the story. At any given time, your body's holding on to more fat or water, or you've gained muscle or whatever, and our bodies can change so much even if the number on the scale doesn't change. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And breastfeeding, yes. Breastfeeding, I find so many people get so disappointed when they hear about their friends like losing so much weight when they're breastfeeding, and then maybe it doesn't happen for them, or maybe at first they lose so much and then they can't lose that last little bit. Other people, and this is a little bit more rare, but other people will gain weight when breastfeeding. Obviously for me that did happen because I told you I was incredibly sick when I delivered, so I needed to gain weight, right? But I put on weight very fast when I was breastfeeding. I remember just having this hunger that I just could not be satiated. I was starving all the time after I delivered because now my body's trying to catch back up on its weight. It's storing fluids like crazy. It's storing fat like crazy. I'm breastfeeding my newborn, which, by the way, my kiddos breastfeed like round the clock. And Alyssa, I know you saw my post in the the breastfeeding group before. So my son still at 2 is nursing like a newborn, like round the clock, every hour to hour and a half. So my body's still making crazy amounts of milk, and I guess it just wants to hold on to some fat, to have some reserve to make breast milk for him. And when you think of it from an evolutionary point of view, it makes sense, right? And so I feel like we women need to be a little bit more gentle on ourselves and realize that our bodies are actually doing what they should be doing, which is not trying to fit into your high school jeans or whatever, and it's just trying to keep your baby alive, or your toddler happy or whatever it is. I'm telling you that just as much as I'm telling myself that too. So anyway, I think I've shared enough. I don't even know how long this video is, but I think it's pretty long probably. So for those of you who stayed with me, thank you so much for watching. That's it. Like, the cat's out of the bag. I have PCOS. I have prediabetes. I am on a constant journey to heal my body. I also think it's important, one last note, that autoimmunity is like, it's on a spectrum. And the medical field is kind of behind, as it is in a lot of things. And I'm not really trying to put down the medical field. I feel like I've been doing a lot of that today. I'm not. We need it for so many things. But that being said, there's a lot of covering up of symptoms with pills and all kinds of things. And once people really truly know that what they put in their body as fuel, like the food that you take in literally becomes you, it becomes your cells, I think it would be so much easier for people to treat themselves, and think about how much more cost effective that would be. Because first of all, you can do it for free, or you can hire somebody to help you, but save yourself so many medical bills in the future, or whatever. But autoimmunity is along a spectrum, whereas if you break your foot's either broken or it's not. That's emergency medicine. trauma, that's totally different. But when you're thinking about chronic disease, autoimmunity, and all of that, it's truly a spectrum, right? So I have PCOS, and I have possibly celiac disease, and I have prediabetes. I'm on the spectrum of that. And everybody's on the spectrum somewhere, right? Even if you're really all the way over here in the beginning and you haven't aged a bit, you're still over here. And most of our tests can't pick things up until we're very far along that spectrum. Some estimates have been 80%. So until you've actually lost 80% of the function of whatever that organ or whatever is supposed to do, a lot of times it goes under the radar. So people think it's black and white. My genes tell me I have this or I don't. My doctor told me I have this or I don't. And, look in my case. I didn't know I had PCOS, but I thought I did. And all of a sudden, bam, I got the diagnosis when I was least expecting it. But I should have just listened to myself. I should have realized that I was on that spectrum somewhere. I don't blame myself. I didn't know. And looking back, I would have gone to a naturopath. I would have maybe paid more money out of pocket for tests that weren't covered by my regular doctor, that type of thing. We have to just take control of our own health. Things are going in the right direction. I do believe that our children will have more options available, more covered by insurance. I have hope in that. But for right now, we have to realize that just like we have to pay more out of pocket for the best quality food, and of course there's cheaper ways to do it too, but we also probably have to pay some out of pocket to control our own health. And if it's a priority to you, like it's a priority to me, you might not even think twice about it. That might just become part of your budgeting because let's face it, you can't be, the best mom that you can be or the best at your job, your career, wherever you volunteer. All life comes down to, do you have the health to be able to carry it out? Do you have the energy? Do you have the vitality? All of that. So once we realize that that's a priority and we're willing to put our time and resources into our health, then we can, turn things around. So I feel very empowered by that. I feel like things are going in the right direction, and you guys who are joining me, I really appreciate it because this was really scary for me to come on and tell you, but I feel better now. I feel pretty relieved. So that's it. I'm going to let you all go, and I'm going to see you in the next video, and thank you all for coming on and hearing what I had to say. I hope you have a fabulous day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.